I know muscles and how you look is like a big thing, but true strength, I mean, it's everything you have, everything you have. And if you're not trying to develop everything you have, you're limiting yourself.
The Fitness Movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all one place, zorfitness.com. Today's episode is pulled from the archives. We're going to be revisiting a conversation that I had with Jeff Baltimore back in 2021. It's actually the first interview I've ever done for the Fitness Movement. So please forgive me, my interviewing skills are not great here, but it is a good conversation, and just one of those people that's looking back on the trajectory of my career and just my life that I was very fortunate to have somebody like Jeff who just really cared about the athletes that were at the facility that he was coaching. And I don't think there's many people who have the level of care that he did for the people around him, and just his willingness to pass on his knowledge. So I am always grateful for Jeff and the influence that he had on me. And I'm excited for you guys to go back and hear this one if you haven't listened to it yet. So enjoy this conversation with Jeff Baltimore. So Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you on. I've been meaning to actually do this for a while, and I'm excited to actually have some guests on and talk about some stuff and not just me talk the whole time. So
you talking is informative, so I like that.
Hopefully. So I've known you for a while, since 2017 is when I started at CrossFit 717, and you were coaching some of my classes then, and we would work out together fairly often in class when we could. So I had some respect from you right off the bat, just because I don't know, I always have respect for people when they can actually walk the walk, and you're good at working out. So I appreciate that.
Good exerciser.
Good exercise racer. Yeah, but I think it's also pretty rare if you can, the better you get to know someone, you actually respect them more and appreciate their knowledge more. And I think that's definitely been the case for you. So I appreciate that.
Hey, much appreciated. It's mutual.
Yeah, thanks. So, I think really I just kind of formed the basis off what we're going to talk about today based on different conversations that we've had about stuff. We've both been in the CrossFit, functional fitness, weightlifting type space for a while, and you, you're obviously doing that full time. And I think you kind of see the same conversations come up with athletes again and again, like stuff that they're dealing with, whether it's burnout or movement dysfunction or hormonal stuff, all the same stuff tends to come up again and again. So I think having that experience as a coach for you since 2014 is super helpful, and you can kind of see the trends. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned burnout, and I'm sure we'll talk on that later, but that's probably the conversation I have the most with the athletes I run into. It's I can do this for a while, maybe a year or a little more than that, and then it's just my progress stalls or I just get hurt. So many of the same conversations over and over.
I think that happens a lot, especially in CrossFit, because it's super intense, for a lack of a better word. Everyone says that, but it's true. I feel like compared to a lot of other general fitness things, it's not an impact sport, for example. You're not playing, football or wrestling where you're grappling with someone or having impact or trauma in that way. So it's just you're putting your body through so much, and that's what's causing so much of the burnout. You're just unable to maintain it.
Yeah. And I think it's just the nature of, CrossFit in general, whether you look at it from the sports side or just from, training for general health, it preaches high intensity, and that's how you get results. So that's what people do. And it's great. It does, produce results and produces amazing fitness, but there is a price to pay depending on how you approach it. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've both seen that a lot. So you are doing the programming for 1440 Athletics, which is CrossFit 717 right now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So obviously, like you have that conversation about burnout a lot, but you can also control it to a degree with one number, just like talking to your athletes and trying to educate them, but also like with through the programming. So like, is there something that you feel like you do to try to at least mitigate some of the burnout or the maybe overuse of intensity all the time in CrossFit?
Yeah. So I think we do a good job over at 1440 of communication between coach and athlete. So every day, the athletes know the intent behind the program. When they get the program, there's like a description of, hey, this is what we're going after today. There's daily conversations with myself, other coaches, between athletes, how they're feeling, how they're moving, what their mood is like, all these things that play a role in, their health and fitness. From the programming side, it can be a little difficult, but there are parts in the week that are supposed to be, all right, this is a piece where we want the intensity pretty high. I want you to go after it pretty hard. And there's other pieces where maybe we have some program, just accessory work, like some single joint bodybuilding stuff, or maybe it's 15 minutes at a conversation pace. And I want you to have a conversation with somebody while you're doing it. I want you to stick with somebody and talk to them while you're doing this. Or maybe it's just, I don't want you to breathe through your mouth through this whole piece. Also, like programming rest periods between rounds of like your traditional WODs. There's ways to try to control the intensity, and I think we do a pretty good job at it. But sometimes you just gotta let people loose and let them go. Like,
Yeah. Actually, I mean, I feel like that's an important part of like, if you never let somebody go, like where you like never like, hey, like really hammer the intensity today, like let it all out there, like, and give them something that is just gonna like, be super, like metabolic, where they're just messed up for a while. Like if you never give that to someone, they're gonna be craving that, especially like for the type of personality that signs up for CrossFit. Like usually that's what people want. Like, I want you to, beat me
I want to be laid out on
feel
the
like
floor.
crap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not puking after the workout, it wasn't a good workout, like that kind of mentality. And I feel like if you give that to people, at least somewhat, it kind of takes the edge off that. And then when you do tell them like, hey, like today's the day for you to, not go there, so to speak, like it actually, provides an opportunity for them to be a little bit more, cognizant of their training.
If you get athletes to kind of buy into that concept where there's periods of training, whether it's throughout the year or even throughout the week, where these are the higher intense pieces and these are the pieces where we kind of want to reel in a little bit. If you can get them to buy into that, it seems to be much more sustainable for both sides. Like they get to like train and improve, because no matter what the sport is, whether it's CrossFit, baseball, learning the piano, doesn't matter. The person that improves, the person that's doing it the longest. So if they can continue to be in the game and train, they'll improve. And at the same time, from a business side, you still have these people walking through your door year in and year out. So it works both ways.
Yeah. I feel like if, the education piece always plays off in the long run where, like initially if you might not be giving that athlete what they want, so to speak, where you might not give me all the intensity all the time right away. But if you can educate them, you might like have like some, pushback initially, but then it's like you're going to get a long-term payoff in the longevity of the athlete. And ultimately, like you actually give them a service that they want to come back for, I guess.
Exactly.
Cool. So one of the things that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I think you think about it a similar way, and I guess I first heard about this through Julian Pinot of Strong Fit. But basically like you only have a certain number of maximal touches on like intensity within like a given time frame, which obviously it's an intuitive thing, but it's probably the first I've heard it super concretely, maybe from him. Is there, so you've mentioned like, like for example, we might give like a super hard metabolic dose like every so often. Like how often is that? And like how often is too often for people actually going like into the, let's call it like the red zone, for example?
I think it depends on, it sucks as all these answers for every single question is it depends. It depends, at least in my experience. I know for us, I try to throw that in like once a week, maybe twice a week. It's not as often as I think people think, or even some of our athletes. They see like, oh, this is an intense piece. I should hit it pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say like once or twice a week. And the reason I say it depends is because, for a more mature athlete, like with a higher training age who's been doing this for a while, I would actually say I would say that's even less, just because they have the ability to go there and push that. Whereas someone who is just starting out, they could probably get away with it more frequently. We don't, but just because they don't have, I don't know what you would call it, the mentality or, the ability to just go to that place, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
And for the person with the higher training age, like, I think it just wears them down a little bit more.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. I think it's also the same way with like, lifting. Like I think someone with a younger training age could, hit close to their 1 rep max more frequently just because they don't have the nervous system stimulation yet to like, hit. Whereas someone with a higher age, like, oh, it might wear them down a little more. It's taking a little more out of them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the higher someone's 1RM is, it's like, well, you have to do more warm-ups. That's just like if you're squatting 800 pounds, like you're some elite power lifter, like the amount of toll you have in like nervous system strain just from getting up to like your 70% is like so much more versus like someone who can do a set with like the bar and put on 135 and they're at 70% already. Like, it's just like the strain on that athlete. Plus, like if someone is like, for example, even if it's like an assault bike sprint or something, like that athlete can tap themselves out so much quicker because they can just produce so much more power.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's like not intuitive to a lot of athletes initially, but yeah, it's certainly the case.
If we hit 30-second sprints on a bike and we have someone who's just starting out and they're like a 55-year-old, 120-pound female, they're like 30 seconds. That was nothing.
Yeah.
Or you got this 26-year-old, 6'2", 230 guy and he's like laid out.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends on, who the athlete is.
Yeah. And probably also whether they're competitive or not. Cause like if you were not competitive,
definitely.
Like you have almost zero reason to put yourself through that on a frequent basis. At least.
It's like, what's the point? If we're doing this just to be, healthy and live long and look good, it's almost, do we need to do that every day? Absolutely not.
Yeah. And I think that's just kind of where the market's at right now too, is like the high intensity thing is what's popular. Whereas like in the 70s, it was like more like jogging was popular.
Yeah. Jogging was the mode of exercise.
Jogging. Soft J, but like 1% of people get that joke, but yeah. So I think like the high intensity thing, like like we have this high intensity interval and then we get to rest, and like, yeah, it's like useful. And like, probably if you weren't doing a lot and you started doing that, and again, you're not super neurologically developed or like a really high level athlete, you probably will get like good results for a while. But like, I think people don't see the role of aerobic work or easy, in particular aerobic work, because all work is aerobic, but actually doing like moderate to easy stuff and how that can actually supplement the high intensity stuff. So like, how do you think about prescribing lower intensity work?
That's also, I think it seems to be one of the hardest things to get people to buy into, because it almost is the opposite of what is preached in a traditional CrossFit box. You ask someone to do 45 minutes on the bike, or even if it's mixed modal and you're doing like easy row, easy bike, maybe some jump rope, some people look at that as like, it's boring or it's pointless. I'm not getting tired. Like, I don't feel like I did anything. So you try to sneak it in when you can, especially for like Gen Pop programming, people that regularly come in. So maybe it's an endurance WOD. We have endurance WODs every Thursday. So every other week also on Thursday, we do like, it's a recovery WOD. So maybe like a 40-minute piece of, like I said, conversation pace. You're talking to someone, or nasal breathing. Um, or once or twice a week, we'll put in like 15, 20 minutes after a strength of just like some low eccentric movements, where it's just easy work, keep it pretty chill. But for people who want to be like competitive, we have a small competitors group. Um, you try not to sugarcoat it, and like, this is just something you need to do. Like, this is something where if you want to uh, be competitive and have that engine, um, it's just something you need to do. Especially now, like, local comps aren't really a big thing right now, just because how the world is. But yeah, but so if you're doing a local comp, it may be 3-4 wads within a 5-hour time span. And how good are you not at just hitting an intense piece, but hitting an intense piece, recovering, getting as close to 100% as possible, and hitting an intense piece again? That's like all your aerobic capacity. How well can you recover and do it again? It's super important.
Yeah. I do think a lot of beginner to intermediate athletes think about the aerobic system that way, where it's like, oh, this is helping me perform better in the workout, which is true, but it's also like you get a double benefit, because you get the benefit of recovering better in between those hard sets as well, which is like super important for the sports side of CrossFit.
Oh
obviously.
My God, it's crucial. And it's recovery in like almost in every way you can imagine. Like, let's say we're doing, I don't know, a set of wall balls. Like, how well can you recover between each throw, between each contraction? How well can you recover? If we're going from wall balls to box jumps, how well can you recover from one movement to the next on that walk over there? Or like between wads, between training days, between year to year, how well can you recover? It's almost how well can you process oxygen?
Yeah.
So it's
really good.
It's crucial.
I think it's also, I really like the one thing you mentioned about like not just your ability to be able to contract, but also to relax, to get blood back into the muscle. Cause like, that's one of the things that like that easy aerobic work helps develop, is like your ability to have just a lower level of tension in your muscle. And if you have lower tension, like you'll relax quicker. And if you get relaxed quicker, you'll get more blood back into your muscle quicker. So it's like even in between, sets, or even like individual reps, you can turn off a muscle and get blood back in. So yeah, that's really good.
As far as like athletes, I mean, that's something I actually do hear a lot is, it's two things as far as like fatigue. It's like, oh, I'm getting out of breath. Like, I can't control my breathing. And a lot of times you hear afterwards, it's like, man, sometimes it's not even my breath. It's my muscles just stop working. Like, I just can't contract. Like, I'm breathing fine. And I just think they don't have the bank account of many, 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 many contractions, over and over again, contract, relax. And they're not used to processing blood or processing oxygen that way. So doing that low level, easy aerobic work, even if it's just many contractions on a rower, or even if it's just, like even easy stuff like walking or going for a hike, like those low level contractions, they transfer over to wads.
Yeah. Again, I think that's something that's really important that's missed a lot, is that like, it's not just about the systemic overarching system that's allowing the people to have a good, like, let's call it like an aerobic event. But it's also like
that's
the
what we
individual
think about.
muscles.
We think about like heart, lungs, but it's
right.
everything.
Yeah, it's everything. Because if you don't have like your ability for an individual muscle, like the local tissue, to be able to process oxygen and be able to sustain contractions over a long period of time, like you're going to fail reps. And that happens all the time in the CrossFit.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter how well, like, you're breathing. If your biceps, your quads start seizing up because they can't get the blood in, like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think that actually happens probably more in non-low eccentric environments. For example, like Murph isn't a very low eccentric workout at all, which is why people get such bad DOMs afterwards.
Yeah.
But like they're doing, like pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, or not sit-ups, air squats, and like running, which are all like super eccentric movements. And I think that's probably in part why people cramp a lot when they're doing those.
Yeah. They're just like, it's like one long hour-long contraction. Like there's like no relax in there. There's no like constant blood flow through the tissues. There's no like metabolic waste removal. It's nothing. It's just they're just
Right. It's
riding this control.
all acyclical.
Yeah, yeah. Which is going to lead to like their perceived, not even perceived, their fatigue and their like DOMs the next day. Like, you know, it's crazy to see how some of the athletes at the top, whether it's Frazier or like whoever, you know, even in WODs or the next day they recover so well. You see those guys in WODs and 2 minutes later they're in an interview like fine. You know, it's not even so much that their ability to go hard is better. It is like their ability to contract their muscles and perform movements, but their ability to recover like immediately between movements, between contractions, between WODs, days, like they just recover better than everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's also like probably a nervous system thing that allows them to do that as well. I mean, like certainly you couldn't do that if like you didn't have the aerobic system developed where you could do that, but also like if you aren't like if your environment and your lifestyle isn't aligned where you know you basically are in a stressed out state the entire day, like you're never going to come down from that and actually be able to recover effectively. So like
yeah,
I feel like that's
absolutely.
part of it too, is like people are getting done with their workout at the gym, they're you know getting done with their assault bike sprints, not doing any cool down or like easy flush work, and then they're jumping straight into their car and blasting their music on the way home and listening to death metal and like the
And
whole thing.
they just ride this sympathetic nervous system 23 and a half hours a day. Like, and they wonder like, oh man, why am I feeling so run down, or my appetite is terrible, or like my sex drive is low. It's like your body's just trying to survive. Like it's not worried about any of those things. It's just trying to get through the day.
Yeah. Is there anything you guys do in terms of like cool down or flush work or like those sorts of things to help? I mean, obviously it's like just like a way to get people to feel better before they leave. Nervous system is just one part of that. Is there something you guys do to, you know, any specific protocols or anything that you do?
Well, I'm sure it annoys like most of the members, but it's always something like something small. So if we finish a WOD 4 days out of the week, 4 days out of 5 weekdays, I'm like, hey, let's go on a 200-meter walk or a 400-meter walk. Just something where they can get off that high of whether it's an intense piece, excuse me, or like an intense strength piece or WOD. And it's just allow your body, your mind, just a chance to just come off of that, relax before you get in your car and go home. Because some people will hit a WOD, like let's say Fran or something, lay on the floor for 5 minutes, get their keys, get in the car and go home.
Oh yeah. I've seen it so many times.
It's I don't want to say it's the worst thing you can do, but it's, you know, we're doing in here is providing a stimulus, you know, like a chance for your body to like get a stressor and then recover from it. But if you never transition to that recovery period, it's almost like, you know, you're just stressing your body out and then going to the next stress and then going to the next stress. There has to be a period where you transition from that sympathetic side to the parasympathetic side.
Yeah. You don't get more fit by working out, which is very counterintuitive initially. Like you don't get stronger by lifting weights, people. You get stronger when you sleep.
When you tell people that, it's like, what? I'm in here getting stronger. It's like, nah, we're just in here, you know, provide a little stimulus.
Yeah. It's like set 5 looked way harder than set 1. Like you are not getting stronger while you're in here.
Yeah. So I think, and like I said, I think we do a pretty good job of like the communication of that to our members. And, you know, sometimes it's a struggle getting people to buy in. But you keep preaching this and they see the results and they see, oh, I actually feel better. I'm getting results. I'm getting stronger. So the why has to be there for the athlete.
Yeah. I think that's one of those things when the athletes see the more mature athletes and the coaches that they respect doing that stuff, they definitely buy in a lot quicker for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of the obstacles that a lot of people have for just like, you know, skipping mobility work, skipping flush work, skipping, you know, easy aerobic warm-ups and cool downs. It's just like, oh, I don't have time or I got to leave right away. It's like, if you literally like, it doesn't have to necessarily even be more than 5 minutes. And if you do like that 5 minute beginning and end caps to your session, like you're going to feel so much better. And
absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know what exactly the obstacle is for people. And maybe it's just education or they feel like that's not actually worthwhile, but yeah, I think they just don't see the value in it, which is
valid. It's not talked about a lot. It's really just come in, kill yourself, go home, and that's especially, I think it's CrossFit and, the training and coaching and the athletes behind CrossFit. It's getting better, but it really was just all you got to do is come in, warm up, hit an intense piece, go home, you're good.
Yeah,
And
hard work pays off.
yeah, and everybody sees that. Everybody sees the games athletes and sees these motivational video and they just want to go hard 24/7.
Yeah.
And then
without the support structures or anything else to provide it.
Yeah. You don't see all the stuff that, they need to do to support that life and support that intensity and support that training. So it's not flashy. It's not exciting. Nobody wants to spin on the bike for 10 minutes post WOD. Nobody wants to sit in the corner and stretch, let their nervous system calm down or do breath work or go for a walk. It's not exciting. But it's corny. But what is exciting is continuing to do the stuff you want to do for as long as you want to do it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I think also a lot of people, it's just when you do experience the burnout, when you do feel like garbage and you're just hormonally distressed, is when you actually learn to, okay, I can't do this anymore. I feel almost everybody when they're 18 is somewhat irresponsible with the way that they go about working out, just because they don't really need to be that careful yet and they haven't had bad experiences.
When you're 18, when I was 21, there was not a thing I couldn't recover from. I could come in and max out my clean and jerk every day if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And more than likely I would hit up close to my PR on most of those days. It's just, it's different when you're young or your training age isn't that high. But if you want to do this for a long time, that's not the way to approach it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, to a degree, it's when you are younger, you can, that might actually be somewhat of the way to go. Don't avoid the stress when you're younger to a degree. Obviously, you have to have the yin and the yang where you balance that out. And hopefully if you have an intelligent, experienced coach, that's going to help with that. But yeah, I feel there's also part of you that can actually go out and do that stuff way more often, just because you are more resilient at that age and less stressed out.
Yeah. So it's a benefit. Take advantage of your youth. I think, I go back and forth with it. I don't regret any of the stuff I did with my training when I was younger. I learned a lot and I feel I improved pretty quickly. There's definitely some dark times, some injuries, some stalled progress for a long time. But it's like you said, it's a balance, yin and yang. Take advantage of it, learn from it. Hopefully you have someone in your corner that's, guiding you and you're not just doing whatever you feel like doing, every good athlete has a coach.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, when they are coming into the sport, they cherry pick stuff or they, want to, come up with their own workouts to do, or my friend's going to do this workout today, I'm going to jump in with them. And I don't know, there is part of the community that is that's fun to do that. I've done that plenty of times. And I think that is probably worthwhile. But also at a certain point, if you're someone who wants to be a professional, and carry yourself as a professional in the sport and compete at a high level is what I mean by that. Where you're going to a sanctioned event, for example,
there's a different
way less than 1% of the athletes. Yeah. If you're doing what, unless you're doing, or what, at least you're not doing what 99% of the people are doing, you're not going to get to go to one of those events.
No, you're not.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's just a completely different conversation if someone's in that training group where, they have those kind of goals.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, the environment you're in, but if you're, like you said, if you're trying to be a competitive athlete and those are your aspirations and you want to go to sanctionals or the games and that's something you want to do, but you're looking on Instagram for your WODs and what's the most exciting thing, it's probably not the way to go about it.
Yeah. Same thing if you're sleeping less than, I'm realistically, if you're sleeping less than 9 hours a day and you want to be a games athlete, it's not going to happen.
It's not.
Yeah.
If you're just I I can't sleep that much, or I can't eat that much, or I don't have the time for this. I don't. And it's kind of a real conversation you need to have with that athlete. You're not gonna make it, because there are people at the top who are literally dedicating their life to this. Like
cutting everything else out.
Everything out. Like they have no social life. Their family life is minimal. It's eat, sleep, train. And that sounds so cliche, put on the wall, but that's literally what their life is. Eat, sleep, train. And if you're not willing or capable of doing that, then that's fine. But know that that's what people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too many people actually want that. Where they don't understand that. Like, it's okay if you don't want that. Like, no one's making you get up and train at, in the morning, and then come back at noon, and then come back at before dinner and do it again. And then do that every day for, 8 months out of your year. Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, no one's saying that you need to do that, but I feel like too many people want to train in that way, even when their lifestyle is not aligned with it. And that's really what a big part of the issue is, in my opinion, with a lot of competitors.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have seen like a bunch of CrossFit day in the life videos. I used to be obsessed with those. Like Rich Froning had one from like 2011. I think I don't know who. I think it was NF Sport did Matt Frazier's. Like it was like a whole series, and it was literally like that. He would just wake up, he'd eat breakfast, he'd train, he'd eat again, go to the gym, train, and then come home and train and go to sleep. Literally nothing else for like 9 months out of the year. And not because not everybody can afford to do that, which is valid. Like, so people have full-time jobs, people have kids, people have like nagging husbands and wives, people have like the stresses of life. So for you to think, oh, I'm going to follow this training style while Matt Frazier's doing that, while he's getting his meals made for him and his it's not valid, which is again, okay. But you're not going to be up there at the top of those guys if you can't match the lifestyle they have.
Yeah. And part of it is like, it's a really difficult question to try to figure out. Like, if you do want to get to that level, or even close to that level where you're trying to replicate that to a degree, like, how do you get to the point where you can quit your full-time job and not have so much stress that creates that you can actually train effectively? Like, are you living with your parents full-time and that's what's allowing you to do that? And are they making all your meals for you and not on your case because you're working out all day and not getting a quote real job? Like, like are you
need you need everything, a support system. You need someone to like, it's not, if you make it to the games, it's not just you making it to the games, unless you have like nothing else going on and you just, I don't know how you would make it work.
Stealing food and
you would need, and in that case, another stress on your life.
Right, exactly.
Not help. So you need a lot of things in place, not only personally as far as like your work ethic or genetics, whatever you want to call it. But you need like the support system of someone that allows you, or a group of people that allow you to just focus on your training. And most people, a lot of people, almost everyone doesn't have that. So, it's cool to want to be fit, want to be competitive. But, I have conversations, I'm sure you do too. Like, I want to make it to sanctionals. I want to go to Wadapalooza. I want to go to the games. Like, okay. You look at them as an athlete and you be real with that person, but you also like, can you do what these other athletes do? It's a hard conversation, but it's valid.
So I want to transition the conversation a little bit I want to talk a little bit more about programming. And again, I think this is just one of the things that you've had a lot of experience with, because you're doing affiliate program, but you're also doing individual design, which are two completely different beasts for sure. And the big thing with programming for groups is that you don't necessarily know who you're programming for. Like, you don't know who's going to walk in that particular day, who's going to be doing the workout. And even though like you want people doing the same workout or having the same stimulus, let's call it, like, you want to be able to get like a certain tension out of the workout. And I mean, that's just like a difficult thing to do when you have like, you're trying to, like if you gave the same workout to a bunch of different people, like it's a different workout for all the people.
100%. And it's like, it's almost, I don't want to say it's impossible because this is what like I'm doing for a living, but it's close to impossible. Like you're writing one workout for, in our case, like 200 athletes. It's to provide them the same workout and expect them to all get the same result, the same stimulus. It's, naive to think. And I think that's where it goes back to when we put out the program, they get the workout the night before in sugar wad, but they also get the intent behind the workout. So they know going in the next day, all right, this is what I should be feeling. This is what I should be getting after. This is how long it should take if the time domain isn't set. So they know going in. Then the next day, there's always communication with the coach. Every day, there's not one class, I don't think, where everyone's doing the exact same thing. Whether that's the reps are scaled down or the movements change completely. It's to do that on a group level and everyone just gets the same cookie cutter thing. I think you're doing a disservice to everyone in the gym.
100%. Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I mean, I have a really hard time with the protocol trying to do that. And I'm already cutting off segments of the population saying this program's not for all of you. It's for these people. And even within that, it's still difficult. So like at an affiliate, you get people who consider themselves competitors who want to, compete at a high level who are doing this. You got people who are, just want to be generally fit and to get a decent workout in. Like you have all of it. So, one of the things that I found is interesting is like if you're doing like, for example, like a 4-time workout, you're going to get people that are finishing way behind other people unless you put like a cap on it. But then at least the volume of that workout. Whereas if you do an AMRAP, you know that everyone's going to finish at the same time. Like, on the buzzer, everybody's done, which is kind of nice because then you don't have people watching other people and like, the out of shape people feeling like they're like self-conscious because they're getting watched. But at the same time, then you don't know the volume.
Exactly. It's like I said, it's close to impossible, and you try to balance it out. Obviously some days we have like AMRAPs, EMOMs, for times, but you try to like I said, it's almost you have this group programming, but you try to dish it out like on an individual level. Every day having that conversation with A athlete, B athlete. Hey, instead of wall balls here, we're going to do front goblet squats, or instead of overhead squats, we'll do an overhead lunge or something, depending on whatever the athlete is dealing with. Because they're all different. They're all dealing with different physical limitations. They all have different stressors. Maybe someone was up late because their baby was crying all night, so instead of working for 20-minute AMRAP, you have them on a 12 or whatever. Like, everyone's dealing with different stuff. So to give everybody the same stimulus is, counterproductive.
Yeah. And even with people that are doing individual design programs, like you're writing for one person, so it makes it way easier in that way. But at the same time, like you have varying abilities on different days. Like there's times where I write workouts for one of my athletes and it's like, they totally should be able to do this, and they aren't able to actually complete the EMOM, for example, or I write it and it's an RPE 6, and I thought it'd be an 8 or a 9 or something. So it's just like completely off. One of the things that I've seen you do in programming that I really think is a great idea, and I've stolen some of it, is you'll do like an EMOM or some sort of interval like that. And then you'll have like an AMRAP of X amount of seconds on that EMOM. So for example, you do like EMOM 8 minutes, 15 seconds of strict pull-ups or something, where you get basically as many reps as you can. So it's almost like creating this individuality on a specific day based on what your capabilities are. You want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. So I don't know when I started doing that, but I'm not sure when I started doing that, but I noticed like, you have EMOMs like in class, and you have, let's say, a 10-minute EMOM of 6 strict pull-ups every minute or something. Or maybe it's 5 to 8 because, some athletes are like not as strong as pull-ups or whatever. You may have a guy who's doing 5 pull-ups and it's taking them, I don't know, 6-7 seconds. And you have someone else who's doing the 5 pull-ups as well. They complete the EMOM as RX. They technically did their EMOM as they should have, but they may have been doing 5 singles each minute, or maybe they were taking 28 seconds. Well, at the end of that EMOM, athlete A was on the bar for, let's say, 1 minute in total, and athlete B was probably on the bar for 4 minutes in total. Their grip may be shot for the next day, so that means their nervous system is shot. And it's like, if there's any way we can kind of control, the time under tension or whatever, or kind of tailor that, I think it makes it a little easier to keep it in line. Like athlete A and athlete B were both in the bar for 15 seconds each minute. They may have gotten, a certain number of pull-ups, but they were both kind of doing what they were capable of in that time domain. I think it also goes to, RPE work. I know that's that's not really a thing in CrossFit as much, but I think it's a mature athlete who can know, like, all right, this should feel like a 6, or I don't know how you do RPE. I've seen many ways. So I do it just strictly by feel. Like that felt like an 8 out of 10 or an 8.5 out of 10. I know some people who do like an RPE 9 means I have 1 more rep in the tank, or an RPE 10 means I have no reps left, or an RPE 8 means so I know there's different ways, but I think the best way to do your training is by feel, just my opinion. The downside of that, I think it takes a very mature athlete to do that. And obviously you can't feel what your other athletes feel. So just trying to find ways to kind of keep things in control.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with it. I do it the same way, where it's like, I want this to be a subjective number, where I don't want this to be something where it's like, oh yeah, I had 1 more rep, so that means it was an RPE 8. Like, no, to me, that's like AMRAP -1. Like, yeah. So it's like, which both of those, like, whether you do it either way, where it's like, 3 sets of AMRAP -2, where it's like you're stopping 2 reps before you would fail a rep. You have to be a pretty mature athlete, or at least an experienced athlete, to be able to actually know what that feels like too. So like with either one of those, whether it's like an RPE 8 or like you're doing like that AMRAP -2 type thing, it's like, I feel like less experienced athletes, or just like more novices, don't actually know what that is, because they just don't know their capacity that well.
Yeah, they just don't know themselves that well yet, or haven't put in the reps to like know, like, all right, when I get here, I know I can get 2 or 3 more reps. So I don't think I've ever programmed RPE in affiliate programming. It's just it can get too messy, because, athletes can, some athletes, depending on the confidence level, really doubt themselves very early, like, I don't know. And then you have those very ambitious athletes like, oh, I know I could have did 1 more. And it's like, no, I saw you grind that out.
Yeah. RPE 6, man.
So I think I like the timed EMOMs, because it's just another way of control and kind of keeping things in line from athlete to athlete.
Yeah. Again, I think that is super challenging, whether it's group program or individual design, is like, yeah, athletes just like attack stuff differently than you think sometimes as a coach. So for example, like even if it's a EMOM 10 minutes, it's a 10 calorie bike, for example. In my mind, that means like you take 45 or 50 seconds to complete the bike, so that you're not right up against the time, but it's as easy as possible. And then
that's
I'm going to
instantly what I think.
And then instantly I have some other athlete who thinks like, oh man, that means I hammer it as hard as I can and take 20, 10 seconds the first minute. And then by, minute 10, I'm absolutely fried. And it's like a max effort every single minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think if you can like what you're doing here is like, you're just creating a more specific way that you want the athlete to actually do the workout, because writing the workout itself isn't enough. Like you have to also give the intent of it.
Yeah. And that's almost, I think, it's like kind of just telling them to walk in a dark room and find whatever they want to find. Like you have to put the light on, let them know, all right, this is not only where we're going, but this is how we're getting there. This is what we're doing. It's very important. So athletes know every single day, not only what we're doing, but why we're doing it and how we're going to do it. And it's much easier, like the progress we see or the results we see, they're achieved much easier if athletes know the why.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's something that's not given a lot, unfortunately. Probably a partner as a result is just like to be able to make a living, coaches have to take on enough client volume where it's really time consuming if you actually write out the why for every single person. So it's like if you're getting a, cheap coach, you're probably going to get a cheap program where it's just really not written out that much.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why I am not doing much individual stuff right now, hardly at all. Because I just feel like I'd be doing a disservice to said athlete if I was just to give them whatever. And then if we both want to, get the results we want, it's going to be there's going to be a lot of communication. There's going to be, a lot of purpose, and you're going to not just get this information and do it. You're going to know why we're doing it. And I feel like that's a lot of time I just don't have right now.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely a danger in athletes at a gym going to, said coach who does, CrossFit group classes. And they're like, hey, I know you maybe do individual design for one or two people. Will you coach me as well? Rather than like going out somewhere and trying to find like an online coach who like does that exclusively. Like, I'm not saying that like there's certainly people who are pushed into systems who are individual design coaches who probably do their job poorly, and their athletes don't know it, and it's like a facade sort of thing.
Yeah,
but more commonly, I would say it's like, if you're a coach, and you can be a very good in-person coach, and if you're trying to do remote coaching, like say that athlete's not actually at your gym, but for some reason like you knew them and now they're on the other side of the country and you have to do that exclusively remote. Like if you don't have the systems in place, it's hard. You're doing them a disservice.
Yeah. And so it'd almost be better to just tell them like, hey, find a coach near you that has eyes on you every day, you can communicate with, knows how you're feeling, knows how you're moving. It's much better to get maybe a coach as, I don't say not as qualified, but maybe a little less knowledgeable than having the perfect, most knowledgeable coach who you never see or talk to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. If you're not like communicating regularly with your coach, which goes both ways. Like, first of all, I know plenty of coaches who don't talk to their athletes that much, and that's on the coach. But also, if like you're the athlete and you're just like, oh, I'm doing this program and I'm not providing that feedback, or I'm not letting them know how it's going, like you can expect a really poor quality product to be delivered to you if you don't give that coach good feedback on what you're actually doing.
Yeah. And then if you finally do catch up with them, or you see them moving and be like, dang, you were moving like that this whole time? Or you even feeling like this?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what the heck? So I think it's better. I'm sure, like I said, my athletes at 1440 get annoyed with, how you feeling today? Like just all these seemingly, pointless questions, or me just staring at people. But it's like, it plays a part into what am I going to program for in 2 weeks from now, or how's this going to change tomorrow, or, or maybe what we're going to do today. Like, it all plays a part.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think you're like, hey, look at my eyes. Like, I want to see your eyes. Let me see your eyes.
How you feeling? Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me.
No, but that's just coaching. Like that's good. I think, not enough coaches are willing to adjust on the fly because it's time consuming too. It's like you already did the affiliate programming, which takes a long time and a lot of thought to try to figure out how you're going to program for all these different demographics of people. And then to try to adjust that or make changes based on what you're seeing on, the bulk of the group kind of dealing with at a particular time makes it even more time consuming.
Yeah. Because, you have an idea on how things are going to turn out, but, when they don't, it's like, do I just keep going with this plan, even though I know it's not working, or do I adjust? And, I think it's a part in humbling yourself, like, all right, this didn't turn out, or you just going to be like, well, go get it together. It's a balance.
Yeah. And I think also that's like, for example, if you're doing like some set program, or if you have a coach that's building your program out way ahead of time, that makes it way more challenging too. Like if you're like, for example, if you have a coach, you're following a program that's, you know, a 4-week block at a time, or an 8-week or 12-week thing where it's not adjusted, and you're just following this, and it's like, oh, 5 pounds heavier than last week, got to put it on the bar.
Yeah,
and it's like, you still feel like garbage. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's again, another thing that's super challenging about programming. But.
And I think it's good to have, like, we have plans. Like, I know we have like throughout the year, we have like our open prep stuff. We have Murph prep every summer or spring leading into summer. We have like a strength cycle or two we'll get into. So you have a plan, but the actual day-to-day programming, I don't do more than like 2 weeks out. Just because, you know, like, even if it was individual, if you're following like a 12-week plan and in week 6, God forbid, your grandmother dies or something, and, you know, you have a stressful weekend with the family, and then you go into Monday, you're supposed to be up 5 pounds and it doesn't work out. You're thinking, what the heck? Something's wrong with this program. I'm like, no, it's, you know, it's having that constant communication with the coach is super important. Super important.
Yeah. That's really good stuff. So another thing that I've seen you do a lot is, well, obviously, like we've talked about mobility a lot in our past conversations, and to us, mobility is not just having the range of motion, but also having like sort of motor control and strength in those ranges.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I want to direct the conversation is like, how do you think about developing mobility with like that, again, the strength component in mind? Well, let's start there. What do you think about that?
So I don't know. My views on mobility have changed, I guess, many times over the years. I know mobility, it seems like mobility is always the hot thing going on. Like, work on your, like, there's always drills to do. There's always these pieces of like equipment that you stuff somewhere. Like, there's always something to like work on with your mobility. I'm just a huge believer in spending time in the positions you want to change. So, let's say, for instance, people want to improve, like, let's squat. A squat is a really easy one that people work on. You know, there's a lot of hip mobility drills. There's a lot of ankle mobility drills, foam rolling, like all that stuff. But people don't really spend a lot of time in the squat, in the position they want to change, with actual intent. So I know for like the overhead squat is a huge, is a movement that demands a lot of like mobility, flexibility, motor control. But people don't spend a lot of time in it, but want to improve it. And the thing that kind of confuses me is that we credit like sitting, for instance. You know, we sit to eat, we sit to drive, we sit to on our computer, and we know and acknowledge that those positions cause change because we spend a lot of time in them. They tighten our hips, they tighten our ankles and whatever. But we don't credit other positions for changing those restrictions. You know what I mean? So it's almost as if one thing is causing the problem, but we can't use that same paradigm or that same mentality to cause a change. So it goes to, you know, if you spend a lot of time sitting, maybe not sit so much. And if that position you spend a lot of time in is causing change you don't want, maybe spend more time in position that will cause change you do want. I think a lot of stuff is like flashy, and, you know, you can sell people a lot of stuff and movements, and it's great. But I think spending time in the positions you want to change is a method that people don't use or think is as valid because it's not as like flashy.
Yeah. And it's like, I think a good analogy for this might be something like, if you want to get better at your back squat and you do Bulgarian split squats and lunges and different, like maybe a dumbbell squat or different variations, it's like, well, what point do you back squat? Like,
yeah,
if you're not back squatting enough, you're not going to get better at your back squat. Like, it's got to be specific.
And I think that's where kind of, I feel like there's like an old school CrossFit way and there's like a new school CrossFit way. The old school CrossFit's like, oh, I suck at this. I'm gonna just do this until I get good at it. And yeah, that has its pros and cons. And like a lot of new school of thought is, oh, I suck at this. Let me put all of these things in place so I can be good at this, which again has its pros and cons. But I think people, as far as the mobility side of it, look too much at like or put too much stock in the individual joint or mobilizing these tissues, and not as much stock into their nervous system or the control behind those movements. And it's too much of like a symptom based approach to their mobility. So like, I have tight ankles, I need to work on my ankles, or I have tight hips, I need to mobilize my hips. And it could be like, I've seen plenty of times where, your ankles may be tight, yes, but is your nervous system making it tight and it's trying to create stiffness and stability in a place where the feet are not strong, or your hips tight? Is it trying to protect you because your core and low back is weak? You see plenty of times people just taking a symptom-based approach and working on their mobility. And like, let's say at the hips, for example, and they come up with a low back injury, where your body was trying to create stiffness in a place and was trying to protect you because it sensed weakness or lack of motor control at another place. So, your body's intelligent. It's probably doing things for, reasons we don't understand, but people don't put as much value in terms of the mobility, I think, into strength, their motor control, their nervous system, as the actual tissues.
Yeah. For example, if foam rolling or the cross ball smashing, if that was the thing that was releasing or smashing those and pulling apart those tissues, like, you think when you load up your back squat and your traps wouldn't be like the most mobile piece of tissue?
My goodness.
And they get so stiff after you're done back
They
squatting.
get so stiff, but people will put a lacrosse ball in their traps all day. And, maybe they feel some relief because, the pain tolerance is a little higher for a second because you were trying to stuff a lacrosse ball in your neck. But, if you're back squatting 200 plus pounds, is that going to do anything? Or if we're doing like a loaded hamstring stretch or something, but I just saw you deadlift 300 pounds, it's kind of like, it's hard for people to see the connection between those two. And not to say that, like, I would never discredit any, like, progress that people see from using those things. But in my experience, working on the actual tissues with the tools and the mobilization techniques, it's not as important, I'd say, as controlling those movements, nervous system, motor control, strength. But I hate to see people like work on it so long and not see the progress they want to see, or it leads to more injuries.
Yeah, I just don't think people understand like the use of the tool. Like, it's a tool that can help if you use it in the right way. If you're not just like mindlessly like rolling on your foam roller or on the lacrosse ball and you're like texting somebody or doing something, like, how many people have I seen on their phone doing that stuff? But like, if you have the intent of like, oh, I'm going to do this, and the purpose is to help myself relax and to calm down these tissues so that I can then get into my squat into the specific ranges that I need, and it helps me achieve a better position so that I can actually load that position better, heavy, so that over time it gets better because I'm in a better position, and also being able to load it better. And if I lift more weight over the long term, then that's getting stronger. So it's like,
I think that's where most of the value of that stuff lies. It's not only that they are causing change, but it can put your body temporarily in an environment to create change in the positions you want to change. So if you can use that lacrosse ball and stick it in your quad, and it like allows your nervous system to kind of relax and not send as many signals to those tissues temporarily, so you can then move to those positions, great. But, I see people do it like if they come in and, doing the same foam rolling for years, and still have knee pain, still have,
and it still hurts when they overhead squat.
but you ask them, how much time do you spend like with a PVC overhead, or just like maybe we do tempo overhead squats? And they're like, not really, none. Not and not. This is another thing that's made me think of it. Not so much with mobility. I remember I get more questions about like skills. How do I get better at handstand walking? I get that a lot, and I when I wanted to learn how to handstand, I'm not a great handstand walker. I'm not. I'm like, I know I could kick up. If I wanted to, I could kick up and handstand walk, but I'm not like a Matt Frazier 100-yard unbroken handstand.
He's pretty good, people. Don't let him fool you. He's being humble.
I'm not. But when I wanted to learn how to handstand walk, it never occurred to me. Like now I see people like doing a lot of drills, like overhead stability drills, or work on their mobility for their shoulders, doing some stuff against the wall. I know when I saw Rich Froning handstand walk for the first time and I wanted to learn how to do that, it never occurred to me to like do a drill. I just wanted to handstand walk. So I would kick up and just do that thing. And I just fell a lot and got up and fell a lot, and I got better at it that way. Same way with snatching. This probably isn't the smartest thing, but I was not good at snatching. You could argue that I'm still not good at snatching, but I would really just snatch every single day, whether it was with the empty bar or the PVC. And I would spend a lot of time in those movements, in those positions. And eventually your nervous system, your motor control gets a lot more efficient the more time you spend in them. And you're not going to get good at overhead squatting, no matter how mobile your shoulders are, how mobile your hips are, or how relaxed your tissues are. If you don't spend time doing them, you get better at the movements you want to change by doing those movemts. So I don't think there's not enough, value given to that.
Yeah, I think I've thought about this a lot, because one of the big things, like big headaches or I don't want to call it a problem, but pain that people have, so to speak, and not like a literal pain, but like stuff that they're trying to figure out in their training, is like they want to learn skills. Like I want to be able to do my first muscle up. I want to get, double unders more consistently. I want to be able to figure out how to do butterfly pull-ups, all that stuff. And it's like, how do you balance doing the skill itself, where you get enough volume doing the actual skill, which is probably the best thing that you can do, but then you also get people where it's like, if you do too much of that thing, then you get joint irritation, and it's going to affect your way that you can actually move correctly when you're doing that thing. But at the same time, that's the best way that you can learn the skill. Combining that with like drills that are more, mimicking the movement as closely as you can get it, that are maybe a little bit more longevity based and, other things. I don't know. I think still though, like volume, just like doing the skill and doing a lot of the skill is the best way that you can actually, really develop and refine and hone a skill.
It's definitely a balance. I know. I totally agree. If you want to get better at riding a bike, you ride a bike. If you want to get better at swimming, but you're trying to do it on land, you're hurting yourself. You need to do the thing you want to do if you want to get better at it. But there's a balance. Do I do this too much and risk, like, let's say butterfly pull-ups, and I'm like causing irritation to my AC joint? I want to get better at double unders, but like my feet and calves are getting beat up. One, I think strength is key. I'm just going to use examples. So let's say double unders. I want to get better at double unders, but I get fatigued, my shoulders get tired, my feet get sore, my ankles get sore, my knees get sore, whatever. At 1440, we have like our regular general programming, like our day-to-day class programming. We have like some extras programming. So the extras is a mix. So it started out for people who wanted to be like competitive and get good at like the sport of CrossFit. And for some, it's just people who just want to get better at certain things. So the main pieces are like double under pieces. That always seems to be a skill people want to get good at. There's an Olympic lifting piece, so snatch, clean, and jerk. And there's also vegetables. So I call them vegetables because it's like the stuff you don't really want to do, but it's like you got to do like your vegetables. You don't really want to eat them. Yeah, you don't really want to eat them, but you got to. So there's like strength-based vegetables, skill-based, and conditioning-based. So in the double under section, there's always like jump rope practice. Three of the days I think actually have like actual double unders in them. The other 2 days have, it's either 1,000 single unders or some high volume number of single unders. And the reason for that is it's creating, I believe, creating a foundation in which to build your training off of. So I really think some people, especially for the sport, like you need to get in shape to train. So what I mean by that is, let's say you want to get better at double unders and you want to put in 15 minutes of solid practice, whether over an EMOM or whatever. And let's say in that EMOM, it's like 20 seconds every minute or something like that. Someone who's good at double unders could probably get like 40 double unders. So that's like 40 jumps every minute over 15 minutes. I don't know the math on that. That's like 600 jumps, maybe. If you can't do 600 single unders, or if you can't contract that many times, it's going to be hard to get enough practice in to get, accumulate enough volume to get good at that. So building that base of like single unders is going to allow you to accumulate enough training energy to get enough practice in. For like butterfly pull-ups, it seems really low level, but if you want to hit a set of, let's say your goal is to hit a set of 15 chest to bar pull-ups, and that may take 10 seconds. There are some people who want to get like their first pull-up or something, but can't hang on the bar for 10 seconds or can't hang on the bar for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, don't even have that foundation to train off of. Like, you want to hit 15 chest to bars, but you can't even hang on the bar long enough to hit 15 chest to bars. So creating a foundation to build off of first, I think, is super important. So let's say we build like a base level of grip strength and like the rotator cuff can handle like supporting your body weight hanging on a bar. Well, let's build some strict pulling strength too, so we can condition those tissues, condition the musculature, so it can handle when you come down from like a hard chest to bar, like that heavy centric. Can your tissues handle that? So building the physical structure is important. But once we have that, you just need to spend time. And as we're spending time, like performing those movements and spending time in those positions, you still need to continue building the structure. So I do agree. There definitely is a balance, but you can't always spend time building the structure, and you can't always spend time like working on the skill, because both are dead end streets.
I think oftentimes, for example, if people are like listening to this right now and they're thinking, oh, like when I learned X skill, I, just did the skill a bunch and I got really good at it. And likely they're not thinking about the job they had growing up that was landscaping, that meant they were on their feet for 10, 12 hours a day for 5 years. And now they're just doing double unders every day and they're able to handle that. Whereas like someone else is 35 years old that had a desk job for the last 20 years. And, every time they go to do double unders, ankles and knees are just destroyed the next day. Like those aren't the same, like the structure and tissue tolerance is so much different for those people.
It's completely different. It's completely different. So, again, going back to like knowing your athlete, knowing their training age, knowing what they're coming in the door with, it all plays a part. Not everybody can be given the same prescription and expect the same result. So, for some, it's going to be spending time in the positions. For some, it's going to be developing the ability to handle the training time to get in those positions. So again, it depends on the athlete.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Just taking the time to develop that number of contractions, which goes back to the aerobic work we were talking about before. It goes back
I love the aerobic work.
Goes back to the mobility stuff. It all ties in, because like if you don't have the range, if you don't have control of the range, if you don't have the aerobic potential for contractions, like you're not gonna be able to handle the volume when you actually want to learn the skill. So again, I think this ties in with like, hey, find a coach who actually knows what they're doing, so you can either be following along in person like at an affiliate, or having them tailor things to you that they actually know what they're doing. Last thing I want to talk about here is we talked about the range of motion component for mobility work and developing strength through like the entire range, and that's like super important. On the other end of that, like there's people who are not able to express anywhere near their strength or like they can maybe overhead squat 135 pounds, but that doesn't mean they couldn't support 315 pounds over their head, for example. Or it doesn't mean that they couldn't do an Anderson squat with 500 pounds, even though they can back squat 315. So this is another thing that we've talked about. It's just like the role of partials with like a super or supra maximal load to just develop strength. So we also have the mobility component where that's part of it is like developing strength through the entire range, but we can also develop strength through a specific, maybe shortened range, which is something, again, it's demonized in CrossFit a lot. Is like, no, you should be going through the entire range of motion. You shouldn't cut your range short at all. And I don't think that's an accurate thing. I don't think you think it either.
Yeah, I know, and a lot of things we see from, through the lens, like through that CrossFit lens, is we have those standards of movement. And if we're talking about the sport of CrossFit or certain movements, like a full wall ball or a deadlift, like those are certain standards in the sport of CrossFit or to perform those movements in a WOD. So if you're an athlete, like a CrossFit athlete, most of your time is better well spent spending time in the positions you'll be in for your sport. So you'll be doing, thrusters where you'll be getting your hips down below parallel or whatever. But to say that like partial range of motion movements have no value to a CrossFit athlete or to a general gym goer is very naive to think, because, life doesn't require you to, always get your hips down below parallel or always touch that bar to your chest. A lot of times, number one, you're going to have to be strong in partial ranges or only moving things like an inch or two. And the benefit of those movements is that you can load so much weight onto your structure that you otherwise wouldn't if you were to go through a partial range. I would have to go back and look at like some videos, but I know there have been like movements, whether they're carries, some back rack stuff, some overhead stuff, deadlift partials, or I've had weight in my hands or on my body that I would never be able to handle. And there's just a different kind of, I guess you could say, contraction or, focus that goes with handling those loads that you just wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. Or anywhere else. So there's definitely value in that for the nervous system, for the structure, like your bones, your tissues. And I think a lot of it's from, a lot of fitness, I guess today, in Western, it's like functional fitness. That's a big buzzword, or bodybuilding, where a lot of the focus is on the musculature, the muscles, how well can they expand and contract, getting a full range on your bicep curl or whatever. But handling those loads, it's, I've read about it and you can't experience it until you do it. There's like just a strengthening component to your bones and your tissues and your fascia and your nerves and your organs. Like everything seems to be contributing to this.
Yeah. Muscles, bro.
Hey, I think that's
it's all about the muscle.
It's great and it looks good, but oh my God, it's a super, super limited way of thinking in terms of like health and fitness and strength. I mean, you got guys back in like the 30s, you can talk about like Paul Anderson and like Bob Peoples. There's like a guy, Bud Jeffries, which is like a big guy who talks about partials. This is it's not anything new, but I know muscles and how you look is like a big thing, but true strength, I mean, it's everything you have. And if you're not trying to develop everything you have, you're limiting yourself big time.
No, that might be the intro for this. Yeah, no, that's super good. And I don't know. I think sometimes people are like, oh, like this has to be some sort of accessory type thing where it's not specific to the sport. But like, even if you're creative, like you can, especially not so much for like CrossFit Open athletes, or if we're thinking about those movements, but for example, like there's yoke carries in the games. Like a
Yeah.
yoke carry is like a perfect example of a partial because you're standing that out of maybe a quarter squat at most. You have like these crazy loads on your spine. Like you can do it with 150% maybe of your back squat, depending on how efficient you are. And like
Yeah.
just the load that that's going to have through like your core, like do you just be able to stabilize like your like abdominal wall to be able to create that much pressure where you can support yourself and to be able to have that much tension and like your erectors and like everything, like even like walking, like your hip structures and like your femurs, like all of it.
Oh my god. I'm telling you, if you're listening to this and you've never done like a heavy back rack hold, or maybe done a heavy rack pull from like right above your knee or even right below your knee, or maybe got on a bench and you had some power racks and put it like 2 inches above lockout and try to lock it out. It's just a different type of contraction, and a different type of load on your nervous system. And yes, there are like 99% of the movements in CrossFit require you to hit a long range of motion or to go through a full joint range of motion. But, I like to focus a lot of this stuff on 99% of people are just trying to look good, be strong, and be good at life. And life's going to require you to carry things, help your buddy move, and to, do things like that. And to just be a strong individual, it helps to do some kind of unconventional things. And, there isn't one idea or one way of training. So if you're limiting yourself because you think there's one idea, that's what you're doing. Like, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah. Life doesn't happen with a neutral spine. I've heard you say
Life doesn't
that
happen
before.
with a neutral spine. Life happens one step at a time, twisting, bending, got to be strong in all ways.
1RM Jefferson curl. Here we go.
I have seen that. That's not the prettiest thing.
We don't recommend that. That was honestly really good. And I think we'll kind of wrap it up here. But we'll definitely have to jump on another one of these. We have a lot more to talk about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
So I'm on, I guess, just Instagram. My tag is jbaldy1025, JBALDY 1025. I'm on Facebook, just my name. That's pretty much it. You can come in, drop in my gym.
Do that. Cross the 717. They're right across the Market Street Bridge from Harrisburg. Used to actually take my students to the gym over there.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
Those kids.
Yeah, the stuff I put them through. All good.
Yeah.
Last question for you. So if you could recommend one thing to listeners that would help them, find, let's call it success in their training endeavors, whatever they choose to do, whether it's like a service, a habit, something that they can seek out and try to find on their own, what would that thing be?
I'm going to say two things. Number one, I'm going to say your breath. Like working on your breath work, your ability to process oxygen. You could do that with like standalone breath work. And it goes back to spending time doing the things you want to do. Get practice breathing, whether that's bringing attention to just how you're sitting and breathing, how you're sleeping and breathing, like as you drift off to sleep, how you're breathing in WODs. It goes back to that aerobic work. You get practice just breathing. You can go like a month, I think it is, without food. You can go days without water. You can't go that long without oxygen. So that should tell you right there, it's super important. Get practice breathing. And the second one, which isn't talked about enough, is your feet. Strengthening your foundation. I mean, whether it's running, whether it's squatting, anything. If your foundation isn't strong, everything upstream is going to be taking a hit. And that goes to like pain as well. If you have knee pain, if you have hip pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, like look at the foundation. It's super important, and it plays a bigger role than you think. If you got like a lopsided table, or something, you always look at the legs of the table. You don't look at the actual table. You always look at the foundation. So think about that.
You're like the top of this table is not flat. I'm going to sand this corner down.
Yeah, I'm going to sand this corner down. I'm going to cut this edge off. No, it's probably not anything upstream. It's probably something down.
Got to get new shoes for that table. That's the problem.
Yeah, so your breath and your feet.
Yeah, no, those are both really good. We'll have to talk about those again sometimes, because that's a whole conversation in and of itself. Both absolutely. Of those for sure. Cool. Yeah. Hey, really appreciate you coming on today.
Absolutely, man. I'll talk to you.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just started listening to the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while, I would encourage you to rate and review the show. And lastly, the best thing that you can do to support our work is also the best thing that you can do for your performance. And that is by hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.